Welcome everyone. Me Alex here. Instead of talking about video games today, um, I wanted to talk about something that I'm very passionate about and I really like, which is as some of you can probably see, the tabletop RPGs. Specifically, I wanna talk about my thoughts and feelings on DaggerHeart, which is a new tabletop RPG by Darrington Press, also known or Critical Role owns that. If you don't know what Critical Role is, it's a an actual play that is streamed on Twitch and YouTube and stuff of professional voice actors playing tabletop RPGs, and they created their own system. And I just kind of wanted to go over it a little bit, a little in detail, a little kind of my general thoughts. I'm currently running a campaign with my friends on it, and we're still kind of learning it. I've read through the book and I've kind of read that, but for me personally, um, to fully understand something or to get a full understanding of something, I have to play it quite a bit to really like sink my teeth into it. Reading it, I I can't fully digest it. So we're gonna go over that and just my thoughts on the whole thing and what I like, um, what I don't like, and going forward, what I think this game will be or is, that sort of stuff. Um, Somewhat different from like the gaming stuff I usually do, but it's something that I am passionate about and I do really like, and that's kind of what I'm turning this channel into because if you go through and look at some of the stuff I've done before, I kind of do a few videos here and there, and then I drop off and stuff because I'm not as passionate about it, or I'm not talking about everything that I enjoy doing, and I'm trying to build this channel into something that can be more of like a hobby for me, and I can kind of talk about stuff that I like and be a little bit more of an outlet. So, without further ado, let's talk about DaggerHeart. And I have the digital copy here. I pre-ordered the book, so I also got like a digital PDF of it um, that has all the art and everything. So, first of all, front page here. I think the artwork in this game or in this book is gorgeous. I think it's great. I think it's amazing. Uh, and I just, the artists have done a fantastic job. Going through the book, Dagger Art Team talks about, Spencer Stark, the the lead game designer, and additional writers of it and all that stuff. And I love it, and I think it's amazing. And they talk art director. They give a lot of props and a lot of understanding and not understanding, but they give a lot of props to people. I I find, all the artists laid out right in here. You know, I don't necessarily know if like a lot of like just the amount of love and attention that they give to just people, right? Content, introduction. The book is laid out perfect. Like, look at the art here. It's fantastic. So in the introduction, talks about it being a tabletop role-playing game, what it's about, the heart of the game. Basically, DaggerHeart is more of a storytelling device than like mechanics driven. It has mechanics to support that and back that up, but like I really like this. And one thing I really like personally is the asymmetrical design. So me as a DM, I am doing stuff that the players aren't doing, and they're doing stuff that I don't do. So to give an example, and to kind of give a what I think is good about this, like for example, like to like give an example, the I use a D20 or a 20-sided dice to roll hit and to inform my rolls when I'm rolling as a GM, as a game master. The players are using 2D12s. So they're much more likely to be more consistent than I am, where the D20 dice is more of swing. Like I can either hit really hard or I can fail, but the players are more consistent and technically their number can be higher. In a sense, like my max number is 20 plus whatever the uh thing I'm doing adds, or the adversary or the creature like adds to the roll, whether that's whatever type of encounter that would be, where a max on 2d12 is 24. Now, statistically, that's harder to get than a 20, but it's higher, and statistically, they're more likely to roll higher averages, if you will. Excuse me. So that is probably one of the things I like the most. You know, the asymmetrical design, yeah, like literally helps with the principle of contributing memorable experiences to everyone at the table. So yeah, and I think that's good because it's we're not I'm playing the same game, but I'm doing different things as the game master. The players are doing other things. You know, it talks about what type of game it is. It's a narrative focused, heroic, like high fantasy, you know, game system, very player driven, story driven. So I will say that if you are more like a hardcore like D&D player or Pathfinder and you're into like the mechanics and the that sort of stuff and the the idea of playing the game, and you aren't you're not a huge role player and stuff like that. The I like again, this game has mechanics, and it has mechanics based around role playing, and it has all these things that are very very like player friendly, and even if you're not so much of a storyteller, you can still play this game and it still has nitty gritty stuff. But I will say, like at the core and fundamental of this game, kind of goes against what you as a player would want if you were the type of player that just wants like the mechanics and the and you play it like a video game or you play it like a game in a sense, um, that's what I take away from a lot of this. The GM has to act in good faith. You know, players have to act in good faith, and of course, like D&D and Pathfinder have this stuff, but I feel like mechanics are a little more rigid with those games. And again, this is just my opinion, understanding of this game. So yeah, going there again, beautiful artwork. Uh, Touchstones. So this is really cool. Touchstones. They literally talk about what RPGs, you know, kind of help them, or like, what different tabletop RPGs like influence them, right? And influenced the game as a whole. So, you have the 13th Age of Theron Press, you got Apocalypse Key from Evil Hat, you got Apocalypse World, you have D&D, of course, where is it? Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons, which is Coast. Like you have all these different Shadowrun, Pathfinder, right? You have all these different games, and I've heard a handful of these. I haven't heard of all of these, which is cool because if it's implementing some things that these other games have, I'm definitely gonna want to look at some of these other games now. You know what I mean? Um, it goes over books, like what books? Song of Ice and Fire, Lord of the Rings, obvious like Lord of the Rings, Wheel of Time, like the standard stuff. Um, films, you know, and video games, you know, Borderlands, Dragon Age, Elder Scrolls, you know, these these games influence it, and you know, some of my favorite games, like legit, especially Inquisition or Dragon Age as a series in general. Um, you know, just going over the core mechanics, very basic. Using this book, so chapter one, and I'm gonna lightly touch on things as I kind of talk over them, sessions and campaigns. You know, the one thing I will say about this game is that it really, like, if we scroll through here, you know, 2 to 5 players, yeah, tokens, you know, game dice, like what you need to play the game cards, character sheets, optional, you know, maps, minis. You don't need this stuff. What I have found, and so far we've done like 3 or 4 sessions in my campaign, and what we have found is that the game is fairly easy to play theater of the mind, like just talking at a table, because of some of the mechanics in the game, and when we get to that section, I'll kind of talk about it a little more. But maps and miniatures are optional, and of course, with games like D&D and Pathfinder, they're optional as well. But like D&D specifically, if you're coming from D&D, which most people are, um, they use 5 feet, right? 5 feet, 10 feet, 15 feet, 20 feet. They're about 30 feet away. They're about this, they're about that. Like where DaggerHeart is, they're very close. They're close. They're far. They're very far. They're out of range, right? Like, oh, they're within close range. So anything that says close range, you can hit, right? Like it simplifies it, which makes it better for not using this sort of thing. That being said, the way I've kind of interpreted this is like melee range is within 5 feet, very close is within 15 feet, close is within 30 feet, and then far is within 60 feet, and then very far is within like 120 feet. Like that's kind of how we've been playing it at my table. Um, just because, you know, you can move up to close, like you can move close. If you're moving anything, um, with this game, if you're moving um, anywhere farther than close range, you have to make a roll for it to see if you can go there. Um, so with having D&D in mind, I was like, oh, okay, so close range is like 30 feet. That's kind of how my table's been doing it, especially when we have used maps and stuff and grids. And it's like, okay, close range is 30 feet, very close is 15, melee, or like anywhere between 10 and 15, 10 and 30, 15 and 30, you know, that sort of thing. It's simplifying it, making it very easy, but mouse and miniatures, as they say here, that you can use these for scenes, to illustrate the scene, description drawing, you know, also saying like the details won't always be specific, or if you want to provide like specific context, right? Um, which is super good because some people are more visual than, you know, but I find breaking it down to very basic, like close, very close. They're within close range, like they're close to you, they're over there. Like players get their own vision of it in their mind, but that's okay for the narrative and the way you're playing. Like it's fine. And what you'll notice is like as we go over this, everything supports the narrative. Everything supports the story that you and your friends are trying to tell, which I love. And coming from Darrington Press and Critical Role makes a lot of sense because it's very, what's the word? It's very like theater almost, which is fun. Um, this is cool. Like player principles, kind of talking about like be a fan of your character and their journey. So like, you know, the character you created, like be a fan of them, want to see them succeed, spot like your friends, like look for opportunities for other characters to share the spotlight and provide openings for them what to do. So it's very collaborative, this game, where it's like the players can be like, hey, what are you doing? Like it's to make that very, you know, that safe table, that safe space kind of um play to find out what happens. Don't have everything laid out. Don't be like, this is what I want my character to go through. Hold on gently. I like this term. Um, you know, i Improvising storytelling isn't always perfect, and it's okay. Hold on gently to the fiction, but let it bend and twist. Like, loosen the pieces that matters, not to be so tight. Narrative has no room to breathe. Basically saying, make mistakes, have fun, change it if you need to. Like it's not like a huge big deal. And that I really think is it's really fun. Um, Spotlight your friends, address characters, addressing the characters and addressing the players. Basically, speaking to other characters and all of them, speaking to other players outside of the fiction, ask them what their character might be doing, like basically breaking it down, right? Build the world together. In DaggerHeart and particular storytelling is not just the DM's responsibility. So to kind of give an example, um, you could kind of look at it as like if you're building the world, like when you have the session zero, or you know, or if in your player's backstory, like they're part of this knightly order who, you could be like, oh, like you guys see this knight with this crest, and you could actually have the player describe what the crest looks like and be like, hey, what is this person's name? They're looking for you. Who are they? Like you could have the player make that decision for you, and then you write it down and you run with it as the game master. Like the collaborative experience, I think, is one of the best aspects of this game. Now, at Timberfall, this is big because typically D&D has been a very um, honestly a very like racist and very like um, awful game, like towards like women and people of color and like all that stuff. If you look at the history of like what it has done, you look at all this stuff. So I like them being very inclusive here. It's a game for all races, genders, faiths, sexualities, and identities, and all this sort of stuff. I really like that because the way D&D has been built over the last 50 years has not always been inclusive, has not always been, you know, and talking about somebody who's played it for, 10, almost 10, 12 years, um, it, I see that. I definitely see that. And I see it in ways that are really shitty. And I'm not talking about like D&D's content as well. Well, first of all, like um, Spelljammer did have that like that thing with the the monkey race and the people coming and uplifting them, very racially charged there. Um, and all drow are evil, you know, because because they're black. Like, not because they're black. There's more to it, but that's basically what it comes down to. And then some shitty people can use that negatively, where it's like you could use that positively, or you could ignore that. And that's what a lot of that is it's like it's it's like if somebody comes to your table and they're like, "Hey, I'm uncomfortable with these certain topics. Like, I don't want to talk about this or this or this. Like, I don't really want to have any racism in my game, or I don't want to have any like slavery or like, you know, or if we do, we have to liberate it or it has to lose because it's a bad thing. You know, that's sometimes that gets ignored. So I really like this and like the session zero safety tools and going over that. Like, what is everybody okay with exploring, especially because you're telling a story? Because telling nuanced stories, telling these stories about these things and touching on racism and social issues and all this stuff can be very impactful and can be very fun and important in a game. Um, and it can do things, but if somebody's genuinely uncomfortable with it and doesn't want it, I like how it kind of spells it out here, where it's like, hey, if anybody is personally uncomfortable, like, make sure that you talk through what kind of experiences you want, because everybody should be able to choose the experience, and also, it's just better for the game in general because if somebody new to the space is like, oh, I want to play tabletop RPGs, I want to play D&D, and then they have a really shitty experience where they have a bunch of like systemic racism going on where they don't like where the people aren't realizing like they're kind of being racist in a sense, or they're emulating like some Tolkien racism with elves and dwarves and stuff like that. Like it can become uncomfortable for some people. So talking about it beforehand is definitely great for that. Um, Chapter one, preparing for an interview. So the core realms. So this is really cool, and I've implemented this in my world because I run my own custom world. Um, I'm making my own homebrew world, but I am using the mortal realm, the hallows above, the circles below, and the realms beyond. And this is basically a world overview. So DaggerHeart doesn't have like a specific world that they've made yet. I heard Jeremy Crawford is, or yeah, Jeremy Crawford is working on something like that. Um, and I'm sure Critical Role will create something that's the defining, world for this. But I like this. It kind of gives an overview, like the mortal realm, basically like Earth or the, you know, stories realms. It just kind of brings it like the mortal planes of existence, the hells above where the gods exist, where deities exist, the circles below, the nine hells where demons and devils exist. The realms beyond would be like an astral realm or a valley of death or like an elemental plane of existence. Like all of those would exist in that. And then you can go off and create it. And I really like how, like in the book specifically, that it kind of talks about it, right? The core realms, and then it kind of gives you like an idea. So like you as the GM, you can kind of be like, okay, like it kind of gives you a template to like use, right? Which I totally am down for. So magic and spells. So this is what I like. This I'm a big fan of flavoring your game, and I also like this. The cards, really cool. For example, on my table, um, we have a few partners of a few people that play like D&D and stuff like that. But the partners of the people that play D&D don't as much. They have, but they don't as much. So having the cards just there in front of them have really helped them being like, oh yeah, I can do that. And like it's a lot it it almost presents itself like a board game. Um, but yeah, it like both magic and spells, both are powerful, like that sort of thing. It kind of gives you an example of like a foundation card, you know, an ability and then a spell, flavoring your game. That's another thing. The default betrayal of something, like they literally specify like you can just change this, like the idea that you can just change. All right, there it's highlighting again. Um, but but yeah, the idea that you can just the idea that you can literally just flavor the game any which way you want is amazing, I think. And it like people have been doing it for years in D&D. It's just flavoring stuff however they want to fit the world and stuff like that. And I do like how like for players that again maybe don't have that like but the game says I can't do that, or like the game doesn't say I can do that. Like this game is very open and being like you can kind of do whatever the hell you want. Like just stick to the mechanics and that's fine. Like you know, kind of give some examples about how it works. Character creation. One thing I really like um, is session zero. Session zeros in this game are, I think, more important than I think session zeros are very important and it should be very important in almost every tabletop RPG. Um, just so players can get what they want out of it, all that sort of stuff. But I think it's very integral in this game where it kind of talks about like the world and like how you want to sit in it. Like an example would be like um, if you have a map, characters can be like, we want to be from this village, and the players can name the village, and they can make their characters kind of from there, and kind of work with it, and kind of do all that, and I do think, um, you know, that's an amazing idea. But yeah, so classes, you have very specific ones. I could click on these and it would take me to classes. But you got Bard, Druid, Guardian, Ranger, Rogue, and they all give a brief description. You want to take those of people fighting, you want to strike down your enemies, so these are different types of fighters, you know, Seraph, like Paladin and Cleric, you know, Sorcerer, Warrior, like, yeah, there's definitely, and then Wizard, and then choosing your ancestry. So choose and choosing your heritage. So your heritages are made up of two things: your ancestry and your community. Which another thing that I really like about this game um, is that these like D&D, especially like fifth edition, they changed it with they changed it with 2024, is that the ancestry and your community are like two separate things in a way. Like where like you're an elf, but that doesn't mean you're good at being an archer or you're good at being like something, or you're a giant, so you're strong, right? Like you can choose your community and how that affects you. Um, Another thing I really like about this is languages. They just assume like everybody speaks a common language, and then the GM and the players can add other languages if they really want to. Because if I'm being honest, D&D languages are kind of pointless in my opinion. It's just frustrating. Like there's feats for it, and you can spec into it, but if it really comes up, you know, it doesn't make it really doesn't help a lot of the time unless players specifically know like certain stuff is coming up. Assign character sheet, assign character traits. So the distribution of character traits, you get 1 plus 2, 2 plus 1s, 2 zeros, and a -1. You can't be good at everything. You're okay at some stuff. You're neutral on some stuff, and you're really good at one thing. I like this. Makes it fair across the board. Everybody starts off at the same position. You're not rolling like, and it simplifies it. There's not like a rule where oh you could roll or you can do point buy or anything like that. Even point buy can be a little confusing on how it works. It's literally like you can put a +2 in something, you can put a +1 in something, you can put 2 +1s in something. Like so you got agility, speed, strength, finesse, instinct, presence, knowledge. Basic stuff. D&D pretty much has them. They just name them stuff different. The only thing I'd say is like agility and finesse is cool because it does split up um some of the dexterity things because I find in D&D specifically dexterity is huge. Like if you have good dexterity, you're very good at a lot of things. You kind of split it up there. I like it. Recording additional information, choosing your armor, all this kind of stuff. Create your experiences. This is like my #1 favorite thing about the game, I think, is experiences. Where in D&D you have a list of what you can be like proficient in, and you can have this experiences. You literally write down like something that you're good at, like skills. You're a bartender. You're oh no, you can barter, like incredible strength, liar, light feet, negotiator, characteristics, battle hardened, background, assassin, blacksmith, bodyguard. Like you can write these down and then you talk to your DM and be like, hey, my assassin experience um would work here because and you talk to your DM and you try to convince or your GM and you try to convince them that they can get, you know, they can get their +2 modifier to it. And the reason I really like this is because you can write down anything you want. You can literally like sticky fingers, silver tongue, or you can write down like phrases like catch me if you can, fake it till you make it. You know, you don't have to choose these. You can make it whatever you want, but like these are examples and I love it. You know, like the example I think Spencer used a lot, like the guy who made the game, um, was like pirate, right? What is a pirate good at? A pirate is good at multiple things, and it just saying pirate or thief or assassin, like you can say like, oh, I'm a thief, so I'm dexterous with my hands. So it doesn't have to apply to stealing things necessarily, but you can apply it to anything that uses your your agility or your like to certain things. Like, you know, uh in dominating presence, like allow giving you a +2 and potentially convincing like, hey, like I'm not gonna use my presence, um, you know, when using experiences, yeah, so I think it's really cool. Domains, domains are cool because they're connected. Each class has two domains connected to it, and then you can pick guards. So these are the ones that are in the core rulebook. There are others that are in playtest, but these are the ones, and each core class overlaps with another class with these, which is really cool. Again, just some of the artwork is fantastic. The domain cards, just explaining what the cards do and what they are in the class. And then here it has all the class information. Now, if you get the Bard character sheet, it will like literally just have this on it, but you can also write this down on a sheet if you wanted to, right? Your starting evasion is 10, your starting hit points is 5, and I like how your class indicates like most of the stuff, you know, druid, you got your beast forms, you got the different tiers. So you have different tiers of play too. So that's another thing about this game that I do like is like the different tiers of play and how that functions. So level one is tier one, level 2 to 5 is tier two, tier three is 6 to, or is 5 to 2 to 4 is tier two, 5 to 7 is tier three, 8 to 10 is tier four. So the different tiers offer you different things. So it's more tiers of play and not your level necessarily. Um, Stalwart, you know, Ranger, you got the Wayfinder, you got the Beast Bond, so your Beastmaster Ranger and Wayfinder, you Ranger Companion, you know, and then you have this where you have the Ranger Companion sheet, which is really cool because you have the Ranger sheet and then you kind of just put this off to the side. I think it's really cool. Rogue, Seraph, again, artwork's incredible. Like, look at that. It's amazing. And then you get into your ancestry, where there's the Clank, basically like a robot person, Dracana, Dragonborn. And I like this, so it kind of explains what they are, gives you an idea of like their average height and stuff like that, and then gives you like an actual drawing of of the ancestry, but then also gives you sketches of how others might look. Like, so you have some that have a little bit more of like a humanoid face, and then you have more like dragon faces. Like, see that? Like, it just, I think it's really cool. Dwarf kind of showing what different levels of dwarfs can look like. Elves, how elves can look. Fairies, you know, they can be more typical fairy-like, or they can be more bug-like. A fawn or goat person, bulldog. It's kind of giving you different ways that they can look to like let you know, like a fungal, so like a fungus type of person. So it kind of gives you like different ideas. Like they can look more humanoid, they can look more fungus-like. Galapa, you know, giants. Like they kind of give you an idea. And like here, they're like 8.5 feet tall on average. They can have 1 to 3 eyes. They can like, and then they have features, of course. Like so, the giant, you get an additional hit point slot at character creation. You know, and then you have reach. So treat any weapon ability or spell that has melee range as very close because they have longer arms and stuff like that, which is huge. Like you know, goblin, like what's their the typical goblin looks like, but then like you can have them look kind of however you want. And it like literally says that a lot of the time. Halfling, human, you know, Infernus. It's just yeah, Qatari. And as you can tell, like a lot of it's like the same as like D&D or Pathfinder with like some changes here and there, like typical ancestors. And then this is cool. So I really like this. So mix and ancestry. So if you want to be, and this is something that D&D 5th edition didn't have. I don't know if 2024 really has this, but it kind of spells it out like it has a mechanic. Like if you want to be half ribbit, half orc, like what would you do? So you can make yourself look however you want to look, right? Like I think this is like a fairy and simian. Like look at that, right? A ribbon and infernus, like a double toed almost, right? And it kind of explains determine the ancestry combination, right? Instead of two. So you can choose two features from ancestors in your lineage. You must choose one feature from one and one feature from the other. So, from my understanding, the way they say this, like let's say you want to be a Infernus Katari, you would you would take one of these abilities from the Infernus. So let's say you took Fearless. When you roll Fear, you can mark 2 stress to change the ability with Hope instead. So you can take that feature, but that means you have to take the second feature from the Canatari, or vice versa. So if you took Dread you did Avengers Intimidation against hostile creatures, you would take that from Infernus, but then Canatari, you would have to take this one, like the first one. Spend 2 to reroll the hope time, agility, right? Like, which is really cool, and it's like built right in, like to how it works, and you like what features that you get from each creature or each ancestry, and then communities just are really cool. In Behindborn, you get advantage rolls with no negotiation. Like you literally like because you're Highborn, Warborn, Orderborn, Ridgeborn, Seaborn, Slyborn, Underborn. So, like, let's say if you wanted to make a drow like, um, let's say the drow are your favorite race in D&D, right? Or ancestry, or I'm not sure what they call it. Species, I think, now. But let's say you wanted to make the drow species. You'd pick elf and then you'd pick underborn. You know, when you're in low light or heavily shadowed, you have advantage on hiding. Like literally, like it's giving you like advantages that the underborn often have. It's because for generations, have, your community and people have lived underground. Wildborn from the forest, adjusting abilities and spells, literally like you can like it literally says like if you want to play a blind PC, like you can utilize another sense, like saying like if it has to be it has no spell recon specifically, but like you can use different mechanics within close range. Like it's literally telling you you can change and adjust things as you see fit for fitting the narrative. Like so, if you have a blind PC, um, if it says like target you can see, you can change that to a target you can hear. If you're playing like a blind monk or something, like if you're like, it's really cool and also very inclusive. Yeah, playing disability with purpose and respect. like the lived experience, like disability identity. Like it literally is breaking down like what you can do for that, you know, telling a disabled story, kind of touching on like, hey, what are do's and don'ts typically? And, you know, as somebody who has a disability, this is huge. I love this. And like I really think it's really good because kind of communicating that or wanting to tell a story like that for myself as somebody who's disabled is awesomely huge. And there's mechanics to back it. And there's stuff like that. Like for example, where is it here? Flying blind and visually impaired characters, like it literally goes through like different things you could do, different how mechanically you could introduce that, right? You know, here's going over the core mechanics like spotlighting on your turn and making moves, not having like initiative. You kind of just do that. Duality dice, how it functions, how armor functions, and how damage works, and all that is really good. So if you get hit, oh shit, where are we here? Okay, yeah. So it's the game is just, yeah, roll dice, explain the action. Like it's going through a bunch of things that are just fun, like how conditions, like different conditions and stuff. And again, I'm not going to go through all of this. I'm just kind of trying to explain like why I like the game. One thing I do disagree with, or like I don't know if I disagree with, but one thing that I've noticed my players have been at, like having a hard time doing, and something that I do want a little less, like um, is money. So how I treat money is like gold is measured in is handfuls, bags, and chests. So ten handfuls is one bag, 10 bags is one chest, right? And it kind of explains that like a chest is like a lot of a lot of money and stuff like that. The value of gold is extract. You don't need to track it precisely. Um, if you want to typical the waiter and flip coin into a well, you don't need to worry about it. Basically, it's saying like if you want to tip somebody or, you know, you don't have to really worry about like the one gold here, the one gold here. Now, I do like the optional rule, and we're using it on at my table. If we want to trap and get more, you can add coins. So 10 coins is equivalent to one handful, or 10 handfuls is one bag, or 10 bags is one chest. And that seems to be working well. Um, I just do know, and me specifically, I do have players at my table that like to make money and like to bean count and they like to do those things. So I'm still keeping it simple. I'm just putting in the optional rule. Downtime, I like this because I feel like in D&D specifically, a long rest is like a lot. Like uh, like you get full health, you get this, you get that. In this game, it's like a long rest. You choose two to do, right? And you can swap like certain cards out and stuff like that. But you pick two of these things to do, right? You can work on a project, you can prepare, you can repair all armor, you can clear all stress, you can tend all runes. You can do two of these things. So you cannot clear all your stress. You cannot tend all your wounds and repair all your armor at the same time. And then I like how the short rest is literally just the same thing, except instead of like clearing all your hit points, or you get a number of hit points equal to 1d4 plus your tier. You know, so if you're level 1, you're tier 1. So it'd be 1d4 plus 1. You're level 2, you're in tier 2. You're level 5, you're in tier three. You're level 6, you're in tier 3. Like it's so short rests don't give you the same amounts as there. You kind of giving, you know, your project downside consequences. Right. Rest. The GM also takes actions during downtime. So I can also take on the short rest, you gain 1d4 fear. For the long rest, you gain the amount equal. On a long rest, I get the amount equal to 1d4 plus the number of PCs. So if you have a party of 6 players on a long rest, I am generating 1d4 plus 6 fear every time you long rest. So it puts in you don't need to. The thing is here is you don't need to go on watch. Like in D&D, it's like, okay, who's on watch in case something happens? Like technically you don't need to do that. And I'm not doing that because I think that this stuff is punishment enough. Like if you're taking a short rest, I am generating fear, which is a resource that I use to punish you or to hurt you, basically. Um, Death. This is a cool fucking mechanic. This is one of my favorite things as well. Um, there are no saving throws. And what I have noticed is that, like this entire game, if you read through it, and kind of probably would have explained, it's like they've gone for like simplicity, right? And it's like, oh, the game must be easy, or like this makes it not. If you die, if you lose all your hit points, there's a couple of things you can do. They're called death moves. Okay. There's the Blaze of Glory. So you can let your character die, and you can take one final actions at my discretion or the GM's discretion, which critically succeeds, no matter what it is. You know, so it's like, okay, I died to the boss. That's okay. I'm okay with dying, but I'm going in a blaze of glory, and I'm gonna crit this dude, and I'm gonna smite him or something. Like I'm gonna do as much damage as I possibly can. Or you can choose to avoid death. So you can choose to fall unconscious instead. Now, you might read that at first and be like, that is that may seem like, oh, you can just choose to live. But if you actually look at it, like, you can't move away unconscious to direct attack. Um, they can't be targeted by an attack, so it protects them a little bit too. Allies to clear one or more stress, mark stress hit points so the party finishes a long rest. Falls unconscious. Roll your hope die, and today is equal to your under your character level. They gain a scar. So there's a potential for you to gain a scar when this happens, or you can risk it all and roll your duality dice, which is your hope and fear die. And if you roll with fear, you die. You roll with hope, you live. The thing I like about this, the avoid death, is the scar. If you get a scar, you might take a scar. You lose a hope permanently. You only ever can have 6 hope. So what that means is your scar, you would permanently go down to 5 hope. And you can make your scar like visual and stuff like that. But that means you can't generate 6 hope. You can only generate up to 5 hope. That is wild. And then it talks about resurrection. And at discretion, like if I want to resurrect you or you guys or the players figure it away. But if a player wants to use the spell to resurrect something, and this is something I do like over D&D in general, it's that the only resurrection spell in the game that players can use and use without any sort of thing. They don't have like revivify or anything like that at level 5. It literally is like max level 10 in this game. So at max level, they can get resurrection. So when you are level 10, when you are as strong as a god or a demigod, or like when you are at the peak of being an adventurer, that's the only time where you can resurrect somebody. And it is only in a certain domain, which low key has made this game kind of a little more challenging for my players. Like I've almost killed my players or brought them to me. I I haven't made anybody make a death move yet, but I've come close in like 5 sessions. And and I think that's why, because you can just choose not to. Like I think that's a little more fun. Additional rules rounding up. So in this game you round up. Like that's just cool. I hate rounding down. Rounding up is always just, in my opinion, better. Tiers of play. So tier 1 is level 1 only. Tier 2 is 2 to 4. Tier 3 is 5 to 7. Tier 4 is 8 to 10. In each tier, has different things, and you can level up and advance a different way. Um, but yeah, like it's just really fun. The weapons, you know, +1 to attack rolls, magic weapons, and that's the thing. There's no different type. There's no like acid, lightning. It's like, is it a physical attack or is it a magical attack? That's literally it. Here's tier 1 weapons, here's tier 2 weapons, improved battle axe, you know, tier 3, tier 4, yeah, it's just, this is really cool combat wheelchairs. Like, they literally put, like, you want to play a character that's in a wheelchair. Like, there's mechanics for it. Again, very inclusive. Um, like, literally, like, light flame model, heavy frame model. Secondary weapons. This is something I like. If you're holding a weapon with 2 hands, um, your damage doesn't necessarily like increase. So to give you an example, paired, if you have a primary, um, you get a +2 to your primary weapon damage to target within melee range. So the short sword is D8 physical. All right. If we go up here, um, and you, sorry, yeah, you can attack with your short sword in your offhand, and it will do the D8. Um, or you could just attack with the broadsword. That is also a D8, but then you get an additional. But because it's reliable, you get a +1 from that, and then also because you're holding a short sword in your secondary hand, um, you would get another +2. Like, so it's not multi-attacking, because you gotta remember they're like turns. Like you can just be like, "Hey, I want to attack this guy," and as long as you don't roll with fear and bring it to my turn, you can just keep on attacking unless I interrupt it with something. Like that's the cool part, in my opinion. Um, armor, armor's cool. So your thresholds 5 to 7, and they decoupled armor from classes and stuff. So you can be a wizard in full plate. You just get -2 to your vision, -1 to your agility because you're in full plate. It's harder to move. So you can be like a war wizard. Like it's just really badass. Uh, there's loot tables. you know, the standard stuff that they add, a full example of play and how it would function, questions for the GM, you know. Another thing I really like this book is it follows pretty much most tabletop RPGs, um, in the sense of like it's it's um it's all in one book, and I really like that. It's not like D&D where it's like you need to buy the player's handbook and the DMG guide. Like, it's all in one book. Uh, Difficulty rolls, 5 very easy, 10 very 20 hard, 25 very hard, 30 like nearly impossible, right? Examples, giving the gym examples, like if they want to pull something, talking about adversaries, countdowns, dynamic things, running NPCs, the standard GM stuff. And like, I can make another video on this, like more going through like this stuff and talking more about like the GM side of things. Um, you know, running one shots, like it kind of breaks down like running campaigns, like what's the difference, like tighter narratives versus looser narratives, and like what kind of planning story arcs. Like it helps you. Like it literally, like, hey, plot A, plot A, plot A. You start putting plot B in here, put plot C here, and then sprinkle it, like literally, like the different arcs and acts. I have a series of environments. So this is something that I really like also because let me just get to the actual adversary list, right? So you have like their, right, their difficulty. So their difficulty is like literally like if they're making you do a roll, like it's against their difficulty. Or if you make them do a roll, you have to beat their difficulty no matter what. So it kind of breaks it down into like very simple terms. And that's somebody who's run this. It's very simple. Like it is very simple and very um it breaks it down very easily, and it makes the game easier. Um, you know, and you have like all this stuff. Like you have these demons and red oozes and skeletons. But sorry, I'm just trying to find it here. And I'm just trying to find it. Um, but yeah, it's so you have all these like these monsters and stuff, right? Well, where is it here? Did I miss it? There's merchant. So this is cool. So it's a merchant. It's just a guy. It's a social thing. Feature, like they're adversaries. They're not necessarily monsters you have to fight. Like it's like a social thing. So like if they're trying to persuade somebody, right? So and once you implement this thing, so if they're trying to persuade a merchant to give them a deal on something, it literally says here, maybe the rolls of $14 win on a persuasion check with merchant, they mark a stress. So you can literally like so like an engagement or anything can literally just be them like haggling with the merchant, or it could be fighting an elemental or like these different things, or a petty noble. Like, you know what I mean? And there's like rules, and there's like, and they mark stress if they fail, and like consequence for just normal day stuff. And it's a lot simpler for like the player or for the GM to kind of implement that stuff fairly easily and fairly quickly with a glance. This dragon. Okay, so this is cool. Using environments. So you can use environments as adversaries. An abandoned grove, an ambush, a vent, and it kind of get cliffside ascent. I use this for my players. It gives you difficulty rating, chances of success, what they need to succeed, like descriptions of certain things, spend a fear for a place you to fall or lose their like literally like you can make certain things just a town, a full ass town, an outpost town can be an adversary or like a you know what I mean? Like a cult ritual. Like all these different things are just really cool. Um, I know this video is getting long, um, but to kind of go through it, and then these are really cool. They're campaign frames, so they're not full campaign settings like D&D has. Even though they are working on one, it's a it's a frame. It's an overview of something that's like a that's like different from the core game. Like where like Five Banners Burning, like it kind of gives an example. These things. Beast feast, like this one, you have to cook monsters and eat them to like help with certain things, and then you have specific weapons and shields because your town doesn't have weapons and stuff like that. So like you have cleaver, you got an iron skillet, you know, and they give you mechanics to like do these things. And it's like little flavors. Age of Umbra, like they have special mechanics that are built into these frames that you can choose to use or not. Uh, Motherborn is like a sci-fi fantasy where they have coding, they have all like this different stuff. It's futuristic. They have like lasers and all this other stuff and different types of gear and like what these things be. It's also the drylands, like it like you want like a cowboy themed like adventure. Here's the breakdown. You want a revolver? Like they add certain guns, but it's not like part of the core game. But it's in the book just to kind of give you, and if you're making your own world, you can mix and match and take some things and leave some things and they even have like their own adversaries and all this stuff. Like all this stuff is just so cool. And then they have the domain they have the appendix. And this is something that I really like. So it's domain cards reference. So the game comes with physical cards and what happens if you lose them, right? Hopefully they'll come out with some way where you can like buy them and stuff. But to kind of give you an example, they're all here. Literally, they're everything that they need. So, like, let's say you're playing and you're running a game and like you're not comfortable with having these cards out for some reason. You could just write these down and hand them out to people, like, and especially if like you are playing at your table and one of your players, two of your players want the same. And they both want Conjure Swarm. One's a druid, one's a ranger, and they both want Conjure Swarm. Well, you only have one copy of it, so you can get into the copy. Now, I have heard that they are working on like a where you can buy like a class cards where it comes with all the class cards individually, so players can buy their own class cards. and have their own. Um, which I think they should do that for everything, for heritage, and so players can buy their own stuff. I do think that because that would be interesting. But yeah, it's all written out here. So technically, all you need is the book, and then it has the basic character sheet, right? We can write everything down. And then it has, the play guide. Each of my players have one of these because we're still learning the game together, so they can look and see, like, you know, what they need to do. They all have an equipment list. I have a GM guide because sometimes I'm like, okay, the one thing that screws me up the most is I'm like, do a agility check. Like, part of me wants to say, like, do a dexterity because I've been playing and GMing uh, D&D for so long, right? And it has like these forms here, and then the Ranger Companion stuff, and some of the thing, and then just some maps. Some of them are tied to the campaign frames. You know, others aren't, and they're just blank maps. So you could have you could print off blank maps. I love it. I think it's fantastic. Um, anyway, that's gonna be all for this one. Um, it's a very long video. I hope some people find it interesting. Bye now.